ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
A body on the train tracks in mysterious circumstances.
Mark's been found on railway tracks.
An award-winning ABC podcast and a fresh inquest underway.
Every time we walk out of that inquest just being like, oh my God.
You weren't out there on the train tracks that night?
Absolutely not.
As the answers get closer, the podcast is back.
He said he's guilty. He's guilty as sin.
Search for Unravel Blood on the Tracks. It's on the ABC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ahead of his election, Donald Trump promised to deport millions of undocumented migrants. At one point, he even predicted 20 million people would be removed from America. So, where is he up to with his pledge? Today, Dickerson from The Atlantic magazine on how the president's campaign is about to ramp up and why the raids in Chicago have set the stage for a troubled time ahead. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Caitlin, the images and the vision we have seen out of Chicago in the last few weeks, it's truly shocking.
This is not a war zone!
It's doing no smoke bomb. I mean, we're in danger. We're in danger all the time with them here.
It is. It's really stunning and not something that the American public is used to seeing. But it's a reflection of the fact that the Trump administration is so determined to deport as many people as possible that it's waging this campaign and throwing every resource it has at trying to make arrests and deport people and really throwing by the wayside lots of norms and rules that have been in place for a long time, which is why people aren't used to seeing these kinds of arrests and sometimes even violent arrests on the streets.
They wanted to show that they are thugs and that they could do whatever they want, and they crashed into an individual, arrested him with no probable cause, no warrant.
Yeah, and of course this is happening across America, not just in Chicago, right?
Yes, that's true. ICE has escalated its work in cities across the country, aided by a huge increase to its budget. So ICE arrests are up everywhere, but the administration has been paying special focus to what it calls sanctuary jurisdictions, cities with liberal-leaning electorates and Democratic elected officials in charge, places that have put in policies to try to limit ICE's work.
Yeah. All right. Well, Caitlin, let's just step back a moment so we can understand how this has actually played out. It was in early September that the Trump administration announced it had begun a crackdown on illegal immigration in Chicago, which was called Operation Midway Blitz.
We're going to make our country very safe. We're going to make our cities very, very safe. Chicago's a mess. You have an incompetent mayor, grossly incompetent, and it won't even be tough.
Tell me about that.
So Operation Midway Blitz, they say that more than 1,500 people have been arrested in Chicago. ICE has been working in conjunction with the Border Patrol. Even though Chicago isn't on the border of the United States, they're also working with other federal law enforcement agencies, the FBI, the agency that oversees alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, really every resource that the federal government has at its disposal to kind of attack the city from all sides. And it's not just immigrants who we're seeing swept up in these arrests. We're also seeing protesters who are trying to challenge what ICE is doing, other activist groups that are out trying to support immigrants in the streets, and just workaday U.S. citizens who have been arrested based on the presumption that they might be in the United States illegally. All these folks are being impacted. So it's definitely very deeply felt across the city.
Yeah, and even children are being caught up in this, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Trump administration got rid of policies that would have left children out of this, essentially. So anyone is fair game. Other policies the administration has gotten rid of used to protect certain areas like churches and schools from immigration enforcement. So for decades, ICE hasn't been able to work in those places. But the opposite is true now. They're actually doing a lot of work at churches and schools because it's a great place for them to find immigrant families. And so it's not just adults who are being arrested, it's those children too. And they're moving so quickly. They're trying to deport people as fast as possible that, especially for people who don't have lawyers and children who don't have lawyers, there's a concern among advocates that those kids might not have access to the due process that could still potentially protect them from deportation simply because the administration is moving so fast. There isn't an opportunity to say, hey, I want to appeal, or hey, I need some time to get a lawyer, or I might be eligible to remain in the United States under this program or that program. Those conversations aren't being had because of the speed of the operation.
Yeah, and really disturbing, Caitlin, at one point, a man who just dropped his children at school and at childcare, he was actually shot and killed.
Exactly. So he had been in the United States for a long period of time and didn't have a criminal record. He had some traffic infractions from the past, but no criminal record at all, and was the sole caretaker for 2 U.S. citizen children. He was on his way to work after dropping his 2 young kids off at school. The circumstances of what happened next are disputed. He was pulled over in a traffic stop by ICE, who wanted to take him into custody, and then tried to drive away. ICE claimed that he put the agents' lives in mortal danger and severely injured one of them, but video footage that was made public later shows one of the officers saying that actually nothing major happened as a result of this man trying to drive away, probably in fear. And the response of one of the agents in the driver's side window was to shoot him, and he died. So his children are now in foster care, according to some reporting that other journalists have done. It's a reflection of the really significant increase of violent tactics that we've seen federal law enforcement use. They say those tactics are necessary in order to be able to do their jobs and in the face of opposition to their work. So this is very much a hotly contested issue. And in the case of this one man, an absolute worst case scenario, of course, someone losing their life.
Well, Caitlin, Donald Trump, we know he had threatened to do this during the election campaign. An immigration crackdown was one of his key platforms.
We have to change immediately. I think it's the biggest problem. I think it's bigger than the economy. I think it's bigger than inflation. The day I take the oath of office, the migrant invasion ends and the restoration of our country begins.
And now, of course, he's massively increased the budget for ICE, or the Immigration and Customs Enforcement body. Just tell me about that, and how much money is he throwing at this?
It's an unbelievable amount of money. $175 billion with a B has been dedicated toward Homeland Security and Immigration Enforcement over the next 4 years. It's actually more than the entire military budget of every single country in the world other than the United States and China. DHS, the Homeland Security Department, was already the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in the country. And this budget increase makes just one component of that agency, ICE, now on its own the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in the country. So ICE's annual budget went from about $8 billion a year, which again was already considered to be quite massive, to $28 billion a year. So more than tripling, really just handing this agency almost a blank check to be able to go all out in arresting and deporting as many people as possible. And you're right that Trump did campaign on a mass deportation campaign, but really offered some mixed messaging there, right? At once saying that, any immigrant in the United States was fair game, but also they were going to prioritize people with serious criminal records. I think a lot of voters really took that second point to heart when they cast their vote, which is why polling now shows that a majority of Americans think that ICE has gone too far. And in fact, more than 70% of people who are in ICE detention, according to the latest data, have no criminal record at all.
All right, well, Caitlin, as you've outlined, the situation on the ground in Chicago, it's deeply concerning. Is there any sense yet of the numbers of people who have actually been deported? And is there any legal basis for this action?
There's absolutely a legal basis for this action. So, the numbers of deportations, they go up and down daily, but the administration is hoping to exceed the record that's set by former President Obama of over 400,000 deportations in a single year. I don't think that they will get to the million that President Trump promised when he was running for office, but I do think they're very much on track to exceed that 400,000 or so. And yes, there's absolutely a legal basis. So what a lot of people don't realize is that American immigration law, which hasn't been updated since 1996, is very expansive and pretty harsh, in the eyes of people who are concerned about what ICE is doing now. If you're in the United States unlawfully, you are eligible for deportation, period. It doesn't really matter if you have U.S. citizen children. Those things might make you eligible to fight for some form of relief, but it's not something that you're automatically entitled to. Even if you were to have the opportunity, you would have to get a lawyer, you'd have to make a case in court. These are really hard cases to win. And so under the law, anybody who's overstayed a visa or who came into the United States without prior authorization can be deported. The reason why what we're seeing now looks different from before is because of policies that were put in place to guide ICE as to how to enforce that law. And those policies over time have sought to protect certain groups. So advising ICE to focus on people who have serious criminal records, not people who pay their taxes, who don't violate the law, or who have U.S. citizen children. But those were just memos and policies. They really didn't carry the weight of law. And so that's why these deportations, it didn't require Congress to do anything. Congress gave ICE more money, but no changes to the law have taken place because this is the law that we've had in place for a very long time.
All right. Well, it does seem, Caitlin, that the president has actually constructed a crisis because families are being left behind as people are deported, communities are fractured. So what is his actual ultimate aim here?
I think that the ultimate aim is to get as many undocumented immigrants out of the country as possible through deportations, but also by simply intimidating people into leaving on their own. I mean, I think from everything that we've seen, they will not stop. We're certainly poised to see more of the same all the way to the end. And in fact, an even greater escalation than we're seeing now, which is hard for people to imagine. The images that they're seeing in American cities are so shocking. But I think given the infusion of money that ICE just received, I think we really haven't seen anything yet. If they manage to hire all these additional agents, and if they manage to continue to succeed in the court battles that they're facing over specifics like the use of the National Guard or the techniques that are being used to pick people up, this is very much the beginning in many ways.
Caitlin Dickerson is a journalist with The Atlantic magazine. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Cinnamon Nippard. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. ABC News Daily will be back again on Monday. Thanks for listening.